Ask your questions, talk it through, explore, reflect, and
Hello, and welcome to this tutorial. I have something very excited to share with you. It is still a bit experimental, beta, but I'm curious to show it to you and see what kind of dynamic it's going to develop. I'm in the QInsights dashboard. I start my example project that I use most of the time. It's like for interviews, friendship, and I'm now going to the analyze option. So you see one new option here, which is guided conversational analysis. Let me first go to the regular conversational analysis. So if you start that, you're like here in front of a blank screen. Some people are already, grooving with AI and they know how to, use it and talk to their data. So they find it quite intuitive and, can start here and ask questions and all happy about this. And some probably stand here and said, oh, how does it work now? So I've been coding data all my life, and now there's this new technology where we can work differently. So how does it all work? So for those of you, and also for the others, of course, I'd like to also invite you to try this out. We have now trained Q, or I've trained it, with the help of the development team to follow a particular workflow. So that workflow is loosely related to the CA to the power of AI method that I'm proposing, and I link the paper in the comments. So what happens here now is that Q is going to welcome you to this guided analysis, and I'm here to help you to explore and gain insight from your research data. So it's generative AI, so the greeting will be, whatever Q thinks at that moment. But what he's always going to ask you is, what's your name and in which language should we communicate today? So I tell him I'm Susanna, and today I'd like to talk with you in English. You don't have to be that elaborate, but you can just say Susanna, and English is fine, or whatever language you want to communicate with. So the next step now is that Q will ask you about more context about your project. You may or may not know that you can provide context when you create a project in the project description, or also later on after you have created the project. But as I don't know that, so it's kind of built in this workflow that Q is going to ask you about your project. So that you don't have to wait for me to type it all out, I have written it already and I can just copy and paste it here. You can, of course, also provide more detail here. This is just to give you an idea how it works. So now, well, asking about, what's the meaning of friendship? Well, these are what all the interviews were all about. So we need to kind of narrow it down and work on one particular topic. So that's what Q is now asking me to give it a cue on, what kind of topic I want to work on. So again, I copy and paste my topic. So I want to start with friendship formation. Here it's a kind of a natural choice because that's how the interview started. The interviewer asked about, tell me about your friend and how you met and how the friendship evolved. Yeah, so that's kind of an introductory question, and it also makes sense to start the analysis here. But in your case, it might be a research question you have. You by reading the data, you get some ideas on, oh, this would be nice to explore. Or the theme analysis. You can also start with the theme analysis, get an overview of all the themes and said, oh, that is a topic I want to start exploring. And also think about natural sequence of, don't start kind of with the end, but, what kinds of fields are natural from the flow to start your analysis. So I now run this or, give that information that I want to start with the formation of friendship. Now, what Q is now doing it is proposing 4 questions on how you can explore that. We could ask, what do that say about the formation of friendship, but to go into more depth, we can, the idea is always to think about questions to get more nuances to that topic. So that accumulation of the answers of all of these questions will give you an answer to your topic. Let's just kind of start with the first question. If you click on it, it's going to be copied in your entry field, and then you can run the question. Yeah, so what we are doing now is we're asking the AI assistant to propose some questions that we can ask it. So that's a nice thing about AI as well. So you can ask it to ask it how to work with it, so to speak. We have 4 interviews now, so it's kind of going into those interviews. I think it's done now, so you always have to watch that little bar here, and then you can scroll down. So now we get an answer here. So it's about the common circumstances. So we get school, university, shared interest activities, life transition, common ground, social media, proximity, cultural understanding, support, and empathy. These are your AI answers. So the idea is always, you need to read this now. Make up your mind, what fits, what doesn't fit. The AI might just sometimes also be maybe a bit too broad with the answer. But then what you can also do, like after you read this, you can ask more follow-up questions. So Alexander moves from Australia to England, and his subsequent enrollment in new school led to new friendships. So you can pick up on some of these things that are provided here and ask follow-up questions. If you scroll down, so it kind of summarizes here the answer, and then it invites us to either continue with the next question or to ask a follow-up question or to move on with synthesis. But we want to do that after we explored, everything that we want to explore. So if you click on ask a new follow-up question, it will actually suggest one. But, we already had picked up here on Alexander's move to Australia from England. So, well, we can see what it says here. Yeah, so we can also look in the original context here. It leads us to that part in the document where Alexander talks about it. So we might already get a more detailed idea. But let's assume we want to ask about that in the chat. Tell me more about Alexander and his move to England, changing schools. Just to give you an idea how you can engage with Q here and ask more details. So what we're also going to see now in the answer that is getting much more detailed than when it analyzes all 4, even if you put more data into it. See, now we get an entire longer paragraph. Before we only had like one sentence kind of only hinting at it. So if you ask only about one case, you would always get a more extended answer. So now also it gives a reference to Shazia. And if you click on it, you will see why it has been doing that, because Shazia also has a similar experience where her friend moved over from Germany. So that sometimes also happens that you ask about one person and then you get a reference to another interview as well. But here we can see there's some relation here going on. So now again, we get a kind of a short summary here, and again it asks us, do you want to ask a follow-up question, or let's continue with the question list here. So I move through these lists now here. So you can pick on these questions, use all 4 of them, or see what applies. And again, feel free also to ask your own follow-up questions. So the idea is also with that guided analysis to give you a feel how this can look like, so that you then can either continue using it or just move to the normal conversational analysis and guide it yourself, so to speak. So now we get an answer on personal values and interest. And again, important is not to just kind of like, jump through all these questions here, but now read it, work with it, go into more detail, look up references here in the original document. Where did they talk about, and or what did they talk about in the original voice, and work with that data here, and then continue with the analysis. So for the sake of this tutorial, let me go through those questions here. Next time we let Q propose a follow-up question. So also, if you have no idea what you can follow up, you can also ask Q again to give you an idea for a follow-up question. Yeah, so what's happening now here, it looks in the data where it finds something about communication, and then those pieces are sent for further processing with the large language model, and then we get the answer here. If you're more advanced already, or want to play around with prompting, you can also add a little bit more on how the format should look like. Otherwise, it's kind of picks its own format, how it should look like. So again, we get some high-level summary here, but now let me pick on that option here, so you can see what happens. Great, it says a follow-up question can help deepen our understanding of the nuances of friendship. Based on the previous insight, how do you think the evolution of communication technologies has influenced the way friendships are formed and maintained over time? Yeah, so that's, you can copy and paste that now. So you get, based on, what was in the answer, it then proposes questions that you might think, oh, that's an interesting idea, or you might slightly modify that question. But so you see here, it's helping you to dig into your data to find out more detail. Already going into maintenance of friendship, you could have, also just ask for how it influence how friendships are formed, but so that's up to you. So you can always change the prompt as well. We don't get anything from Deborah here. The very likely reason for that is that Deborah hasn't talked about anything. So these data are already a bit older. So it was, not the time of Instagram or, WhatsApp and stuff. It was the beginning kind of Facebook where people communicated. You could ask about Deborah, but it's most likely then it will tell you there wasn't much in the interview about it. So let's move on to our last question here from the list, asking about cultural or social factors that impacts the beginning of friendship. So now here we have the answer. Again, something in there from all four participants. And again, I probably would ask more follow-up question, more detail now on each of these persons, but it depends on how deep you want to go into the analysis. For the sake of just this tutorial, let's assume that's all what we want to know. We don't want to ask more follow-up questions. We want to move on to synthesis. So to close the chat is I've always kind of got into the habit of letting Q help me to synthesize or to kind of summarize all the major findings. So here are 4 summary or synthesis options that are suggested. Well, let me go through all 4 of them, and you can pick and choose what you think is appropriate for you. So before we often got more the focus on the factors, and then within it the examples for the respondents. So this kind of turns it around, focuses on each respondent, so you kind of get a different way of looking at it. So let's now synthesize the key insights. Actually, now this kind of flips it, so it's not case-based anymore. I was kind of hoping that this might happen, because up till now it kind of behaved as was supposed to behave. Now it says, thank you for reviewing the key insights, which, well, we didn't. We asked it for doing that, and it didn't do it. That happens sometimes. Return to the key insights after we maybe look at similarities and differences. And I'd pick that option again. So then usually it works. So go kind of with the flow, as Q is still in training, so to speak. And then if it kind of skips something, then you can return to that later. So asking for similarities and differences is something we kind of regularly do if we analyze data. So that's why that question is included here, and often it's also important to also highlight some unique perspectives here, that so not only the common grounds, but also those things that are unique about the respondents. So let's go back here, and we wanted the key insights, so see whether we get them now. So what you also see is, so once we have used an option, then it's not showing anymore as an option. Yeah, so now it did the key insights. So what we can always ask more follow-up questions if we want. But so the last synthesis option is the overview table. And in terms of the formatting, if you don't give it specific instruction, it kind of comes up with some formatting, sometimes nicely, like here with bold, not always like that. And yeah, so if you export it, you will have a nice table. Sometimes it also presents a more nicer view of the table here. But again, these are first steps here. And important is right now what we can get out. So we get an overview table of all the questions that we have been asking here. So just kind of pointing out in very short, pointed summaries. What are the difference here between the 4 respondents? So now we have been going through all questions. We have been going through all the synthesis options. So let's just wrap up the analysis now. So it says we have reached the end of the analysis. Please save this chat and give it a meaningful name. It will be stored in your project archive and make it so it can support your research report. So what's important here is to give it a clear descriptive name. The idea is here that you go topic by topic through your data in a chat. So don't mix and mangle too many different things in one chat, because you will never kind of find what is in each chat. That's why it also asks you at the beginning, please give me that one topic that you want to analyze. Even if this follow-up question, also if Q is just kind of like wanting to direct you in multiple directions, stay with your topic. Here it's exploring friendship formation. Sometimes the name is maybe not what you want, then just pick another name. Important is here also for those new to the platform that you can save the chat and give it a meaningful name, not just chat 1, 2, 3, 4, and then it will also show up in the archive. Now just a little trick: if you download the chat, because now you also have to do something with the chat. You can of course also revisit in the archive, but this might be already, if you print it out, 10 pages, depending on how many follow-up you have been asking. So you can output this chat also with references. So if you have to click the references here, then you will get whatever is highlighted in the documents as reference to the original sources. If you don't want only the chat, you just leave it out. If you click on download, it's going to be a PDF document. But you can, what I did now is hit Control A, or on the Mac Command A, and then you can copy and paste it into a Word document if you want to have it in a Word document. Then you can read it in a Word document and then start writing based on that. You have all the questions now, you have the AI-generated synthesis, and you can write up your own piece on the formation of friendship as like one aspect of your report. So I'm not going to download right now, just wanted to show you that. So now I can close the chat. We already saved it, so we can skip it here safely. Let me go back to the archive. So here in the archive, you can build up the bits and pieces for your report. And maybe if you already have an idea how you want to build up your report, maybe you can even number it. 1, exploring friendships, 2, trust, 3, whatever. So you get kind of a chapter overview kind of here in your archive. Yeah, that's it about guided analysis. I invite you to try it out, have fun with it, go with the flow, see where Q guides you and whether it's helping you to understand better how you can analyze data with an AI assistant at your site. And I hope it's also going to be lots of fun. We would love to hear from you. I open up the comments for this video tutorial, so leave comments here on YouTube, but also shoot me an email and let me know how things are going.
Ask your questions, talk it through, explore, reflect, and synthesize.